If it had not been for the Lord on my side, tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? Tell me where would I be? Oh, tell me where would I be? All hail to the Christ within. This is your obedient servant, Reverend George Latimer-Knight, coming to you with the Sunday school lesson for the day. Many of us are home, we're not able to go to church, so I decided to come on and do what I do best. And I promise you that I will do these Sunday school videos from now through June and longer if the need arises. So we'll go right to the lesson. We're in lesson number 12. The date is March 22, 2020. The international subject is an argument against corruption. U.H.S.C. subject, clean it up. Lesson text, Micah chapter 3, verses 1 to 3, verses 9 to 12, and chapter 6, verses 6 through 8. Lesson outline number 1, hateful leadership, Micah chapter 3, verses 1 to 3. Number 2, hypocritical leadership, Micah chapter 3, verses 9 to 12. Number 3, heavenly living, Micah chapter 6, verses 6 through 8. Lesson setting time, 735 BC. Place, Israel. General theme, all institutions are prone to corruption and to the vices of their members. Morris West. An argument against corruption. This lesson, this subject, applies to the scripture here, but also applies to our time now. We're seeing what happens when corrupt leaders are before us. It was said in the last presidential election that it didn't matter who the president was because whoever the president is does not affect our daily lives. But now, as many of us are told to stay at home, many are ill because there was such failure of leadership on the federal level. Now we're all seeing the reality that it doesn't matter who is in office. Many of us are now leaning on our governors, our mayors, and all of these officials that most of us didn't even vote for one way or the other because we felt that our vote did not matter. And now these people whom most of you didn't even vote for at all are now affecting our everyday life. Our lives are in their hands. An argument against corruption. Well, what is corruption? Corruption is when something was good or right, but over time, the wrong thought or ideas crept in. And the U.H.S.C. subject is clean it up. That's the only way we can fix corruption. We have to clean it up. We have to make a change. And we're here in the book of Micah. And Micah is what is termed a minor prophet. And the word minor only refers to the fact that the minor prophet's books were short. And he was a contemporary of Isaiah, who is known as one of the major prophets, only referring to the fact that Isaiah's book is 66 chapters long. And at that time, Israel had split into the northern kingdom known as Israel and the southern kingdom known as Judah. And Micah, like Isaiah, prophesies to both divisions of Israel, trying to help them to come out of their corruption before it was too late. Let us go now to the verses here. Our first outline is hateful leadership. Micah chapter 3, verses 1 to 3. Let us first start with verse number 1. And I said, hear I pray you, O heads of Jacob, and you princes of the house of Israel. Is it not for you to know judgment? So here Micah, he is speaking to the leaders, the heads of Jacob, the princes of Israel, and he's asking them a question. Is it not for you to know judgment? And here judgment is not referring to judging someone on a personal level. It means judgment as in our decision-making process, how we judge a situation, how we decide what we're going to do. A leader has to have good judgment. They have to be able to make good sound decisions at all times. I took a class a couple of years ago on decision making, and one of the biggest lessons from that study is that making a good decision is not the same as making a perfect decision. When you make a good decision, it means you did the best thing you could based on what you knew at that time. So our leaders will not be perfect, but we expect them to make good decisions, sound decisions based on wisdom and whatever information, the best information that they have available to them at that time. So Micah is asking them, isn't it your job to be and to have good judgment? Verses 2 and 3 say, who hate the good and love the evil, who pluck off their skin from off them and their flesh from off their bones, who also eat the flesh of my people and flay their skin from off of them, and they break their bones and chop them in pieces as for the pot and its flesh within the cauldron. Isn't that such a horrific image? To peel people's skin off, to chop them up and put them in a cauldron. That's a big pot like the witches you see in the movies. The witches had a cauldron. Just imagine that picture in your head, chopping people up and putting them in the cauldron and stirring them up. This is what our leaders do to us when they fall into this category. So who hate the good and love the evil. And this is, my dears, a reprobate spirit, which is a word you find in the New Testament that Jesus used so often, a reprobate spirit. And simply put, a reprobate is one who thinks right is wrong and wrong is right. So here, these leaders, they hate the good. They hate good. And they love evil. We can see that all around us in our society. Things that will seem to be good, people hate them. And the things that seem so evil, people are in love with it. That's hateful leadership. Now, the second outline is hypocritical leadership. Micah chapter 3, verses 9 through 12. And we know what a hypocrite is, one who will tell us to do one thing while they do another. Let's read verse 9. Hear this, I pray you, ye heads of the house of Jacob and princes of the house of Israel, that abhor judgment and pervert all equity. Again, he's talking to the leaders of the house of Jacob, of Judah, and Jerusalem, and of Israel. Say, you abhor judgment. Means you can't stand good judgment. And pervert all equity. You pervert everything that will set people on an equal footing. You pervert everything that will cause you to treat people in a fair manner. Verse 10, they build up Zion with blood and Jerusalem with iniquity. Again, we see this stark imagery. Imagine building something with blood. Imagine if you were building a brick house and instead of mixing the water in the cement powder, you mix blood. This is what's happening all around us. Our society is built on evil and hypocrisy. And that's why now we're in these trying times. Everything is falling apart. All the things, all the safety nets and the things that would help the common man have been destroyed and attacked. And now when we need those things in place, now those in power cannot use them because they were destroyed. Verse 11, the heads thereof judge for reward, and the princes thereof teach for hire, and the prophets thereof divine for money. Yet will they lean upon the Lord and say, is not the Lord among us? None evil can come upon us. Now we're getting to the heart of the lesson here to show us what corruption does. Now he's talking here to three different groups. The heads, the priests, and the prophets. The heads, they're judged for reward. In other words, he's saying the people in charge, the people, and we have to remember that when it talks about Israel and Judah, the leaders, it's not talking about the religious leaders, it's talking about the political leaders. That's how we will see it in our day. So many of our leaders in our time, the way they make decisions is what will reward them, what would help them. We just saw two what happened to be Republican senators. They sold off a lot of stock after they were briefed on the current pandemic before the general public was truly abreast of the situation. And they saved themselves he saved himself almost $2 million by selling his stock before the crash occurred. So the leaders are making judgments based on what will reward them, what would help them, what will suit their individual proclivity, not what will help or suit the community. And the priests thereof teach for hire. The priests, the religious leaders, so they teach for hire. They teach, so they will teach you, but only if you pay them. If you hire them, if you pay me by the hour, I will teach you, they're saying. The priests thereof teach for hire. And the prophets thereof divine for money. These prophets here, they know how to divine. They know how to seek God in spirit and in truth, but they'll do it for you if you give them some money. They won't do it for you to help you. They may get an impression for you, a word for you, but they won't tell you unless you pay them. And this is here the picture of corruption. Yet will they lean upon the Lord and say, you say, well, how can they lean upon the Lord? And they're doing such evil. Would you see the heads, the priests, the prophets, at one time they were right. At one time they were righteous. The lesson is not talking about people who were evil all along, who are fakes or phonies. No, these are real leaders. These are true priests. These are true prophets. They have been trained and taught and put in place in the right manner. But after that, they were corrupted. Like a politician who runs on a campaign of justice and they are sincere in what they're saying and they go in office sincere in what they're thinking and doing. But once they get in there, the lobbyists get a hold to them. People start putting money in their hands, making offers they seemingly can't refuse, and before they know it, they have become corrupted. Now they can only vote the way the people that paid them told them to vote. The priests, these were godly men, but over time, they turned to people who were only there for hire. So yet, Will they lean upon the Lord and say, is not the Lord among us? None evil can come upon us. They don't think evil will come upon them because in their minds they are doing the Lord's work. They are doing the Lord's work because they are heads. They are priests. They are prophets. They're not phonies. They are those things. But they have become corrupted, as the book of Jude said, I think it's verse 24. But Jude is only one chapter. I think it's verse 24. He said, it crept in unawares. These were true leaders, true men and women of God, but their unrighteous spirit crept in unaware. And before then, they're not even conscious of the fact that they are corrupt. So they feel that the Lord is among them and no harm can come against them. Verse 12, therefore shall Zion for your sake be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountain of the house as the high places of the forest. In other words, all that you have built will be destroyed. It will be plowed down as a field. Like it says in Psalm 37, so they'll soon be cut down like a blade of grass. It will be destroyed. We see our president of this great nation. You look at him the last few days, he looks worn and drawn and tired and weary. Why? Because he's being plowed down. Something came upon this nation that he couldn't tweet his way out of. And he's still throwing fits and getting angry with the reporters and going off on them. Still talking in circles, not letting the people who know or have expertise talk, do most of the talking. But he's being plowed down. He's weary because he can't fake his way out of this one. The third outline is heavenly living. Micah chapter 6, verses 6 through 8. Verse 6 says, wherewith shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before the high God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves of a year old? Verse 7, will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, or with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? In other words, now what can I do to fix this? Now I see I've erred. How do I fix it? Remember, they were still doing the burnt offerings, the animal sacrifices. Look at the numbers. I get the burnt offerings with calves of a year old. That was the most delicate thing you could sacrifice. Maybe I get thousands of rams. And it said, with 10,000 of rivers of oil, like all the oil I can find, maybe I can fix this. Maybe I'll even sacrifice my firstborn child on the altar. How do I fix this mess I have gotten myself into? Verse 8 gives us answers that he hath shown thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. He's shown us what to do. He's shown us how to fix all that ails us, even in this trying time we are living through. We're living in a time that none of us could ever have imagined. We're living in a time that seems like a book or a novel or a B-movie plot, not something that is real. We see New York and LA, some of the most busiest cities, not just in our country, but the world. Nobody walking, nobody out. All the doors shuttered and shut. So how do we fix it? And what doth the Lord require of thee? He requires only three things from us. Number one, to do justly. To do justly. Just do what's right. Do the right thing. Number two, to love mercy. Mercy is when we know a person is wrong, but we give them a chance anyway. We know the person has done wrong, but we forgive them anyway and still lock arms with them and say, let's go on, my brother and sister. Let's get past this. We have to love mercy. Number three, walk humbly with thy God. Walk with God in humility, knowing that we don't have all the answers. This is all we have to do, but it's too simple, isn't it? Just do right, love mercy, walk with God with humility. It sounds so simple, but will we do it? Most probably won't. But now the whole world is being brought to its knees. Now all the people who made fun of the Christian, the Jews, the Muslims, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Sikhs, and all the things that sound so crazy in the scripture, all the things that sound so silly. Go back to Moses, days of Moses, before Pharaoh, the 7 plagues. We can go all throughout all the different scriptures. They sound so silly, but look around us. All these people have this virus. People are dying all around us. Thousands and thousands of people have died around the world. And many of us, we have to stay in our homes most of the day. It's a risk for people to go to work, even those who have to work. It's a risk. We're living in the things that we made fun of. We're living in those days. We're seeing that those things really could happen because we're living it now. We're about to close. Go back to the general theme. All institutions are prone to corruption and to the vices of their members. That's a quote from Morris West. We have to remember that all institutions, whether it's the government, the school board, the church board, the family, the PTA, the Fraternal Order of Police, whatever group it is, all institutions are prone to corruption. Any institution can be corrupted. It's and to the vices of their members. So whether you're a leader, whether you're a member, follower, whatever category you place yourself in, we all must be held responsible and accountable to do what's right. Because as we close, this lesson was a top-down lesson about how leaders corrupt the people. But we also know that the people can corrupt the leader. When the people are wrong, they will ask for wrong leadership, people who will back them up and will reflect them. Let's read the explanatory synopsis. Micah was a contemporary of Isaiah. Micah prophesied to Israel and Judah concerning their unrighteousness. He warned them that if they didn't change, they would suffer the wrath of God. And the wrath of God is a religious way of saying suffering the consequences. In the last few lessons, we focus on the corruption in the Babylonian system. Here and next week, we are focused on the corruption within the ranks of God's people. Corruption, regardless of its source, must be rooted out and destroyed. Of course, we should first look within ourselves to see if we have any corrupt tendencies. Along with self-reflection, we have to look at what our leaders are doing on our behalf. As the impeachment hearings revealed last year and what we're dealing with right now with this pandemic, terrible consequences occur when officials behave in their own interests and not the best interests of the community. I've used the impeachment hearings when I wrote this, but we're living the clear example of what happens when we have leaders who look out for themselves, contrasted with leaders who are only care about the interests of the community. We're living out now. So let us root out corruption first within ourselves, recognizing others. Let us remember we do have an election coming this year, whether we end up doing it in person or may have to go by mail, however it goes. You remember, let me not see again on social media that it doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter who we elect because they're all the same. It doesn't matter. We all see that matters. Leadership always has and always will matter. Father Hurley told us that Leadership is a fine subject to study. Let us study, let us work together, let us pray together. But may God bless you and keep you. I'm going to ask you to do a few things for me before I end. If you enjoyed this video, hit like. I ask you to subscribe to this channel, as we will be doing the lessons and putting up sermons all throughout the different periods of quarantine that'll be going on throughout this time. I also ask you to share this video on your social media page with your followers and friends if you feel it may be of value to them. May peace and love abide with you all.